The Swamp Thing issue 13, Ram V writing, Mike Perkins on the art. How do you follow up a 10 with something that clocks in about a 9? Quite comfortably.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not complaining. I am not complaining. This is an excellent issue. It's absolutely fantastic.
Is it a 9 or is it another 10?
Let's find out, shall we? We'll delve in. So, get a bit of Levi and Jessica lying in bed, and he's kind of explaining, his malaise and why he was just sort of being a tree for a while.
Just chilling.
Effectively. But of course, but he ultimately says that, he has to, morality lies in making choices. That's the line on page 3 that I really liked, is that you can't just sort of be impartial and stay off to the side and feel like you're doing the right thing. Is that you have to actually make good choices to be good and have an impact in the world. Because he thought, and we saw this with the one rose that he was kind of keeping in the corrupted green. But the idea that he has to, if he could keep one thing alive, that he would be doing something good. But ultimately, that's not true. He has to come out and make a difference. So he ends up with Jack Hawksmoor. There you go. I can forget his name. The guy who's one with the cities, right? The one who's connected to cities. And this factory, the factory, has sort of manifested and sort of come alive again underneath Detroit. And obviously we expect this is connected to the rise of the new parliament, the parliament of gears, the industry, as opposed to the green and all that. Which is the stuff that me and Matt were just fawning over last issue, and the conceptually how great this is. That it's a man-made
right, that's kind of what this back half of this run has turned into, is the idea of man's effect on the planet and the ecosystem and how it's changing the balance of everything.
Yeah, and there's new forces coming in as well. We have this, and then we have obviously the Trinity one, which we'll talk about when we get to that page.
It's a little bit reminiscent for me of stuff that American Gods.
I can see that.
You have the new gods of the media coming in and kind of changing things.
Yeah, I kind of hinted this last issue. I tried to stay away from it too much because I didn't want to spoil it for Matt, but since he's not here, I got so much Twin Peaks season 3 vibes last week. I was like, yes, give it to me. Swamp Thing meets Twin Peaks. I'm into it. So basically, this is corrupt and it's feeding off the energy and everything from the city. And one of the things Swamp Thing tells him to do is to maybe try and get the cities to disconnect it from this, because it's basically because it doesn't have the resources to build, because all this thing cares about is producing. It's just keep going, keep enduring and producing things. And that's why it's started stealing homeless people and making things out of them. And it's really horrific. The body horror stuff here that it's kind of implying that it's doing this
there's a box, a metal box, whatever it is, that starts turning into stuff. That it's got the face coming in the eye. God, that's creepy as shit.
It's proper horrific. It's kind of Tetsuo the Iron Man, but it's actually mixing in proper flesh as well. And it's it's just this awful, horrific stuff that, I love. So yeah, they try and shut off this factory, which involves Swamp Thing fighting this sort of half metal, half flesh kind of avatar for industry. And they do seemingly succeed, and there's some great pages here, and just the fight when Jack gets involved and he's got the lightning coming from his eyes, and it's just really fun stuff that feels really moody and atmospheric. And then after they win, Swamp Thing kind of puts his hand down and sort of fills this building up again with green. The green's supposed to reclaim derelict buildings, not industry, not the stuff that was put there and comes alive again. So he goes to the Parliament of Trees to talk to them, and we actually cut to the Trinity stuff here, so I guess we'll jump over to that before we talk about the rest of that.
Yeah, okay.
So this Trinity stuff
another
is
new avatar.
Another new avatar. This is fascinating. Matt did some research last week and found that the name isn't just this random thing they've picked. It comes from what this stuff is called that was created when the nuclear bombs went off. But she's this glittery, kind of sparkly being created out of the bombs, and this guy finds her in the desert. He lives out here, and he thinks she's cold. So even though she looks different, he is kind to her, gives her his coat, offers her food and drink. She doesn't need that, but she plays along. But when she gets up the next day, this guy's dead because she is emitting
presumably intense radiation poisoning.
Yes, she is completely radioactive. Break out the dosimeter because this is potentially worse than Reactor 4. It's a Chernobyl reference for anyone who didn't get that. And and Joe, this is the thing I love with these Swamp Thing books is I love sometimes it's the right occasion for the third person narration. Not the first person. You go the more omnipotent third person narrator who is talking about this as if it's like sort of written in stone kind of thing, and it works in other contexts. I like it with Superman. Like it makes Superman feel like a godlike being in many ways. If you have someone else talking about his impact rather than him speaking directly,
feel other.
Yeah. And I think it really works with these beings, these avatars, because it makes them feel like these elemental, ethereal things. But you get this horror.
This is so sad.
Yeah, because she doesn't seem like she's like inherently evil. And one of the things here that's interesting is she's walking down this like town that's nearby. They immediately get scared and they take out their guns. They start shooting her. And there's a moment where she looks at this kid and she realizes that the kid had a toy in his hand, and then like all the adults have these guns in their hands, so it's like a toy or something that's designed to kill someone. And she has this kind of moment where she's like, do I have to decide what I'm going to be? Am I going to be something that's used for happiness or something that's going to be used for death and destruction? Like there's a line where she clearly contemplates like which way do I go? What do I decide I'm going to be? So I don't know if this is going to be a thing where this avatar and what force she represents can like choose to be better or worse, because she did see an act of human kindness from the man to begin with.
She has done nothing inherently evil. Like killing the man was an accident. It wasn't. It was just a cause of who she is or what she is, not anything that she consciously did to hurt him. So she's definitely not villainous in any sense of the word right now.
Yeah, and she could be insanely villainous if she chooses to be, but she carries this man's dead body back and is immediately attacked. She's trying to
she's trying to find them to get help.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of sweet. And then there's this moment where even when she's been shot at, she's looking at the kid and she's weighing up this choice. So yeah, here's the lines here, just because I really like this couple of boxes of narration. Before her, in the man's hand, she sees a gun, and the child's a toy. A fine thing it's made is to be made, she thinks to herself. But the choice is hers now, she understands, to be a thing of joy or a thing of final consequence. So, and given that she comes, like, she's created from a nuclear bomb, effectively, or multiple nuclear bombs going off, that's like her inception, it's kind of interesting to think of her choosing to be not a weapon, or not destructive.
Right. The choice she clearly has is, it's the analogy of, okay, she can be a nuclear bomb, or she could power a nuclear reactor and give the world clean energy, right? Presumably that's like in theory the kind of the extremes of where she could go.
Yeah, what one is useful and will benefit everyone, the other one will just murder a lot of people.
Yes.
So yeah, love this. And do you know what the funny thing is? That last issue was a 10 before that Trinity thing at the end even happened. That last issue was a 10, and then it gave us this last couple of pages where it was like, oh, this is super intriguing on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So, wonderful stuff. And then we go to the Parliament of Trees, and they're talking about this new Parliament of Gears, the industry rising. And, there's this great page of, what did they call them last issue? I forgot. You just read it. You should remember.
The pale...
Yeah. It was a combination of the Pale Wanderer and
it was
his name,
because it was the guy who he took over, wasn't it?
Oh god, okay, doesn't matter now. But it was good stuff. But he's like sitting there at the bottom in kind of like a throne made of gears, effectively. And the Parliament are talking about how everything's changing, and they're effectively at war with this new Parliament. And it's revealed that they're actually turning to Jacob to fight it, his brother. And he walks in, he's like, no, he's better suited for this. And his brother calls him weak because he tried to save him, and it's like this idea that you're not right for this, and hits him away, and Levi becomes more human during this moment. And I'm not sure if it's implying here that he's actually lost.
It is, yes, 100%.
You think it's 100% doing that? But he turns back into human as Jacob. He keeps the kind of the horns, but becomes more Swamp Thing-esque as he walks away. And it's actually the one member of the Parliament who looks like a young girl, but as a member of the parliament, says, no, when we were picking a new avatar, like it was me that wanted you, and you have an ally in me still, and when you turn to me, I'll still be here for you. I don't have as much power as the parliament combined. I can't give you everything, but so it's this idea that there is someone hoping for the better, and the reason why she picked him was because she remembered them swinging from the tree as kids, and she used to wish that it was her branches that were swinging from. It's actually kind of this oddly sweet thing. I don't know. I don't remember a time when the parliaments had individual personalities, and there's one that's been more sympathetic. I don't know if I remember an occasion like that before.
I have either.
But that's interesting. So basically, it's this hope that eventually they will turn to Levi again. That they need Levi's compassion rather than a war. And I think the idea that this is where maybe the Trinity stuff comes in is they're going to need someone to appeal to her to make the right choice, as opposed to just fight her.
Yeah,
and I think that's maybe
but they're reacting out of fear right now and don't and just in panic stations and quick. Let's get our own weapons ready.
Yeah, and I don't think they even necessarily know about. Maybe they do know about Trinity, but they don't talk about Trinity here. They just talk about the gears, that side of things. Yeah. So I think maybe that's why they're going to have to turn back to him. But I think he still has a connection to the Green, though, because I think that's what makes the ending still work. Because
I think he does, just through this one member of the Parliament, though. He's not an avatar anymore. He is not a Swamp Thing. But maybe he has just a touch.
Yeah, I think he's still connected to it, and he can still sense things, because when he comes home and Jesse's like, hey, someone's here to see you, and it's Hal Jordan, and he's like, hey, we've got a situation, and the final page is them out, and there's these big plant-like beings floating through space, and he says they're here to fight a war. So he can still sense, the purpose of these plants. So there's still a connection to the Green of some sorts. So that's interesting. And it makes me wonder if the Green are actually enlisting alien plant life to come and help. That's kind of the implication I got here.
Yeah, that I was going to say. I don't know how much it is he is actually sensing this, and how much is just he knows the plan from before, just before he was kind of cut off and stopped being in the Avatar. This is the Green's army.
Yeah, I thought it was sensitive, but I mean, you could argue either way, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm sure it'll be clear next issue. Yeah, but it could go either way.
Because I think him having that one member of the Parliament still on his side means that he will still, sense the Green in some way.
Yeah, I think it. I like the last page. Mm-hmm. I think you could almost cut it and just end on the Hal Jordan page and just end there, and it still works.
Yeah,
I've got a situation in my hands, and we just explain this, alien plant war starting next time. You don't need that right now.
Yeah, maybe it's just a sort of page count thing where they realized, we have to go one page further. Yeah, because that would work as a cliffhanger. Just Hal being there in that full page spread saying, "I need your help."
It feels like a final page, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a minor quibble in the grand scheme of things, though.
Yeah.
I really can't emphasize enough how much I love the idea of the industry rising as one of the new powers, and Trinity's story so far. All of that stuff. I think the mythology that he's adding to Swamp Thing here is fantastic. And
yeah.
I said this last issue, but it really does feel like these last 6 issues are going to be the best thing of the whole run, and I'm so thankful that we're getting them.
And that says a lot, given that the first 10 were all pretty excellent.
I mean, it's one big story, and it all comes to, it's all part of one thing, but ultimately, all my favorite stuff, I think, is actually coming in this last chunk. Based on these last few issues. So
I mean, last issue before this was a 10, and the one before that was a 9.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean,
and
clearly this is up there.
Yeah, and the art is phenomenal. I think the stuff in the Trinity section, especially, because obviously there's a lot of fun, grotesque stuff when they're fighting the Avatar, the Industry, or the Guardian, whatever it is that they're fighting, this mesh of flesh and metal. But the Trinity stuff is, I think, where you get all this sort of subtle emotion of this being contemplating the kindness that's been shown to her, the way this man's looking at her, which is just of oh, I need to help her. There's so much sort of communicated in the art and the emotions of just what the characters are thinking and how they're reacting to each other, and the narration is there, but the narration isn't necessarily overly propping up what the art's doing. It's kind of telling its own side of it in a way. So The art is really strong here across the board in that sense, and because we do get this very different, and she's a very different character. Even though obviously there's a potential for her to be very horrific in what she's doing to people with the radiation, she's a very pretty thing to look at in terms of like all the sparkly colors, and it's very it's like a walking Northern Lights in some ways kind of thing. Whereas obviously all the stuff with the industry and the factory is, Tetsuo the Iron Man meets like David Cronenberg meets other stuff. Like it's
so great.
It's wonderful. So,
and I just checked the name. Pilgrim was what we were looking for.
Pilgrim?
Pilgrim, yeah.
Pilgrim. There you go.
Yeah, just for the sake of it, but it's a little bit different, obviously. Because Wanderer is, by design, it's like, okay, it's just out there doing its thing. But Pilgrim has a purpose.
Oh yeah, that's the
message to spread.
That's partly why it's such a good name, is because it's obviously the man's name, but it's like got a double meaning to replace Wanderer. So, but yeah, no, it's a wonderful issue. What are you giving it?
I'm gonna give it like a 9.5. I'm basically just knocking like half a point off for that like last page, where I'm like, I didn't need that last page here. I would have preferred the ending just to end on Hal.
Yeah, it's hard to. I'm just going to go with a straight 9, basically for the same reason. I just don't want to overblow the ratings a bit. I'm keeping restrained and just going with a straight 9. But I gave the last one a 10, so like we're in like an all-time Swamp Thing story at this point, and
for sure.
Like I could not really be happier.
It's going to be remembered as such.
Yeah. So I think this will be something we're propping up. And awards at the end of the year, and next time we hit a milestone and we're doing what's the best of everything since we started the show, this is going to be comfortably in contention for high up on that list. So
it probably would have been even from just the first 10 issues, but now with this, it's easily.